Hi, my name's Finley and welcome to this new day ticket series. In this series I'm going to be travelling to busy day ticket venues up and down the country and showing you guys how I'd approach them venues, the tactics, the theory and then put it into practice. Today you join me down at Sandhurst Lake. I came down last night, flicked out the rods to try and make a quick early bite. That hasn't happened yet, but as the session progresses I'm going to change my tactics and I'm sure there's going to be a bite on the cards. It looks like it's going to be a glorious day, so I'm going to get the kettle on, sit in the bivvy and see what the day brings. This is my first ever time down here at Sandhurst, and after speaking to friends once I came down here yesterday, it's everything that I was expecting and more. In the air it's got that big fish carp feeling, there's a lot of history in the local area and there's plenty of carp in here that go over the 40-pound barrier. Now this year my target is to try and catch a 40-pound common, and this lake certainly gives me that opportunity, so fingers crossed maybe on this session we'll be able to catch one of them for the cameras. Before you trip down to Sandhurst, it's worth having a look online, speaking to people and figuring out how many fish are getting caught from Sandhurst and where them fish are getting caught from. There's a lot of carp in Sandhurst, over 400 carp, and some weeks it can be really prolific. However, on other sessions you might be trying to nick the odd bite here and there. And I feel like having a look online, seeing where the fish are coming out from, how many fish are getting caught at that time of year, it will give you an idea what to expect for the session, and I think that's really important because a lot of people, they'll have the idea that they're going to come down here, fill it in, it's going to kick off, we're going to have multiple takes, that might happen, but having a look online you might actually see that it's fishing quite hard and you'll decide, I'm going to be scratching for a bite, so I might prepare some solid bags, just single hook bait, or you might see that it's fishing really good and you'll be able to bring plenty of bait just in case if you have a big hit session. The time's just gone 12:30 and the rods out there on the single hook bait haven't been able to produce a bite that I was hoping for. So my next plan is I'm going to reel these rods in now, get the leading rod out and try and find a spot out there. There was a fish actually caught down the bank last night over a little bed of bait, and I feel like if I can find a spot out there, get 3 rods on it and introduce a bit of bait over the top, we should be able to catch a fish. When leading up, especially down here at Sandhurst, I'm looking for 2 different types of lake beds. I try and avoid weed, but the lake beds that I'm looking for are either gravel or silt. These lake beds are really easy to present your rigs over the top, so when I'm leading up down here, to be honest, I'm going to try and find quite a shallow bit of water, ideally gravel, and the reason why I'm going to try and find one of these spots is I feel like gravel's got to be nice and presentable, but also if I find a gravel bar where it's a little bit shallower, that water's going to warm up quicker, and especially at this time of year I can imagine that being an area where the carp are going to hold up. If I can't find a spot where it's nice and shallow or gravel, I won't mind fishing in the deeper water over a little bit of silt because I feel like the silt's going to hold natural food, and with that depth, that water is going to hold its temperature. When you look across the lake at the horizon markers, there's plenty of different features, plenty of trees that stand out compared to the others, so when I'm leading up and trying to find a spot, I'll use these markers when I'm leading up, as since it's a busy day ticket, a lot of anglers will use these features when they're leading up, as A, it's something to aim to, but B, which is more important, it's something to aim to when it's dark. It's going to silhouette against the sky, making casting a lot easier. So what I'll do is when I arrive in any swim, look across the lake, see if there's any trees that stand out or any obvious markers like maybe a pylon or, like I said, a big tree. Cast in that area and odds on you're going to be able to find a feature from somewhere where your swim is up against your swim boundary. Just cast as far as you can within reason, bring your lead back until you find a spot that you're happy with. Once you find that spot, clip it up, you've got a marker to aim to on the horizon tree line, and you've got to make sure that you're fishing accurately every single time. Had a little lead around now out there for about 5-10 minutes, and to be honest it's a lot shallower than I was expecting. It feels to be around 5 foot in depth, but I found a spot out there now, probably around 80 yards, maybe a little bit closer, but it feels perfect. It's not as clean as I was looking for. Ideally I was wanting to find really clean gravel. Feels like gravel with a bit of silt on it, but I'm sure if I put a little bit of bait on there and the fish do come in and have a bit of a feed, it's going to clear that silt and there's going to be a nice area to fish on. So I'll get this lead in now, get the rods clipped up, get some bait out and see what happens. When it comes to bait application on any session, I'm always a little bit cautious on how much bait I'm going to be putting out. As a general rule of thumb, I'll start any session with around 8 to 10 dot spots on the spot. that tends to be enough bait to get the fish's attention, having a bit of a feed, and then if I catch one, I can adjust my spodding accordingly. If I catch a few fish, I'll introduce a bit more bait. If the bite is slowing up or I'm not catching anything, I might top up the area if a few birds are diving on me, or if I feel like I should have had a bite and the fish have maybe investigated the spot a little bit. I think the worst thing to do is turn up and just start putting out a full bucket of bait. It might work if the fish are up for it, but it goes back to the importance of checking online, checking social media and see what's coming out. If I go online and I see that it's fishing really well, I might actually put a few more spods out. Rather than 8 to 10, I might increase that to 12 to 15 dot spods. Or if I see like it's fishing slow, like I did just before this session, I'll start the session with maybe only around 4 to 5 dot spods in the area. I might even spread them out a little bit just so the fish don't feel wary. So just take that into consideration. When you're baiting up, it can be the difference of catching or not. Once you put it in, you can't take it back out. We're just starting to lose the light, and what I'm going to do now is quickly make a mix, show you guys what I'm putting in there, get it out on the spot. And the reason why I've waited till now is the light's starting to drop and there's quite a lot of bird life down here at Sandhurst, and I feel like if I was spodding in the daylight hours, them birds would just be an absolute nightmare. They'd be diving down, picking up rigs, eating the bait. So that's why I'm going to be making a mix now. So the first ingredient in the bucket is simply just half a bag of flake. This is actually frozen, so I've put it in the bucket to defrost. That said, I've got around half a bag in there, and the reason why I'm using the flake on this session and not whole boilies is, like I've mentioned, there's a lot of birds down here, and I've found in past experience using the flake it's a lot harder for the birds to actually dive down and clear out your spot. I know if the birds dive down there, since the flake consists of loads of small little bits and bobs, even if the birds do dive down there, there's still going to be food nestled nicely on the bottom for the carp to come in and have a bit of a feed. So that's the first ingredient. The next ingredient is the good old classic sweet corn. It's highly visual, it's really easy to digest, which is really important at this time of year, and down here at Sandhurst it's a bait that's got a good proven track record, so I'd be stupid not to put a bit of this in the mix. I'm not going to go crazy because, to be honest, when I spot out there, I'm not going to be putting that much bait out. Simply just a corn, get all the juices in there, and yeah, give that a bit of a mix, and that's the second ingredient added. And to be honest, that right there is already looking really attractive, and I'd be happy to put that out, but there is one more ingredient that I'm going to add into the mix just to add a little bit different of an element, and that is Scopex squid pellets. Now the reason why I'm going to be adding the pellets is because these are going to be breaking down on the bottom, giving out constant attraction as they break down, and I just feel like it could be something different compared to other anglers on the lake. So I'll put them in there. Just going to give it a mix. And that's the mix that I'm going to be putting out there tonight. As you can see, it's really basic, literally just the flake, pellets and sweet corn. But I feel like them three ingredients down there are perfect for down here at Sandhurst. There is one last thing that I will do to this mix, and that is I'll add a bit of Scopex squid syrup onto the mix just before I put it out, and that's just going to add that extra pulling power as that sinks down to the bottom. If there's any carp cruising around, they're going to get the heads down and have a bit of a feed. I'm going to put around 5 to 6 dot spods out on the spot. I'm not going to go crazy because I'm just fishing for a bite at a time. I'll put them out there, see what happens, and then act accordingly on what happens over the next few hours. Well, we just sat there, just finished having a pizza, and the right-hander is just let out a weird bite, and to be honest, I thought it was a trailer or a bream. We didn't bother filming it, but I'm pleased to say I've just netted one. It's not a bream, it's not a tench, it's not a big carp, but it's a carp. But I have recently put a few stockies in here, and to be honest, I think that's what I've caught. And yeah, I wasn't expecting that to rip off. But it's a start. There's a lot bigger in here, probably 10 times bigger than the fish in the bottom of the landing net. But we're off the mark, get in. Check that little stunner out. It's not one of the 40-pounders that makes this lake famous, but it is my first ever Sandhurst carp. the people opposite have just caught one in the last 10-15 minutes, so it's definitely looking promising for the rest of the night. So I'm going to get this little stunner put back. Like I said, it's not a big fish, but it's safe to say that the future of Sandhurst is in great hands. And you never know, the next one might be a little bit bigger than this one here. Good morning, and it is a good morning, and that's because last night I was able to get off the mark. I did catch one. It wasn't a monster, but I really don't care. A fish is a fish, and we were able to land one. When I landed that fish, a few other fish did get caught around the lake, and it was looking promising for the night. So I quickly got the rod re-wrapped up, put it out on the spot, and the same rod was away. A couple of hours later, I connected with the fish. It did feel bigger than 5 pounds, but for some reason it came off shortly after. I was a little bit gutted, but it shows that I've got the location right, the tactics right, so I got the rod back out, feeling confident, but for whatever reason, that rod remained motionless for the night. I've woke up this morning, I have seen plenty of fish showing in this swim and slightly further right, so there's still fish in the area. Nothing's been caught today, the sun's getting up, and I feel like if zigs were allowed, that would be the tactic that I'd be using. But the band down here, so I'm just going to stick with the tactics, keep them rods on the spot. I'm not going to introduce any more bait at the moment because I feel like the birds will be a nuisance. So I'm just going to leave them out there, and then this evening, as we start losing the light, I'm just going to hit repeat on what I've done last night, as it clearly worked. I got 2 bites, landed a fish, so yeah, 5 or 6 dot spots onto the spot, and we'll go from there. But it looks like it's going to be a glorious day, so I'm going to finish this brew now, redo the rods, and we'll see what the day brings. Locating carp is important wherever you go fishing, but more so down here at Sandhurst. Down here there's around 400 carp, and if you're not on them carp, you're simply not going to catch them. Now, you're all probably sick of hearing about fish location and how important it is to locate where them fish are. But there's a couple of things that I do down here to make sure that I'm setting up on the fish, fishing in the area where the fish are, and giving me the best chance of being able to land one. Now, down here, the fish tend to show early mornings, late evenings. Now, it's a little bit annoying having to set your alarm clock nice and early, but it is critical to make sure that you're up at the crack of dawn, watching the water and seeing where them fish show. You might only see 1 or 2 fish show, but seeing them shows will give the game away as to where most of the fish are going to hold up. So every morning, I'll set the alarm, get up just before first light, get the kettle on and watch the water to see where them fish are. If for some reason they're down the other end of the lake or in an area where I wasn't expecting them, I'll make sure to pack up the gear as quick as possible and move around if there's swim available. If I can't move directly onto the fish and it's quite busy, what I'll do is I'll reel in the rods, walk around, speak to anglers and figure out when they're going to be packing up. And if one of the guys will be packing up early, I'll make sure that I can pack up my gear nice and early, get round to the swim, so when they leave, I'll be able to set up on the fish. It's really important to stay mobile, keep active. Like I said, there's a lot of carp in here, but it seems to be that they hold up in a massive shoal and they're not always going to be spread all around the lake. So just make sure that you spend your time, always watch for water, especially at the crack of dawn, and move on to them fish if you need to. The rigs that I use in the majority of my fishing, I try and keep things as simple as possible. Now, the rods that I'm fishing out there on the baited spot, they're my good old trusty blowback rig. It's a rig that I know is going to present over almost any lake bottom. But when I'm casting around to show and fish, or I'm casting in an area where I don't know what the bottom's going to be like, I opt for this presentation, and that is the solid bag. Since your rig's protected in the bag, your rig's going to be able to present over any lake bed, even if you're casting weed. Since that hook and that hook bait is protected, you're going to be presented and able to get a bite. So this is the setup that I use in my solid bags, and it couldn't be any more basic. All I've got there is a length of Klingon leader. The reason why I'm using the Klingon leader is just to pin everything down by the lead, and also I can prepare these at home, so when I'm out on the bank, all I have to do is attach my main line onto the leader and get cast out straight away. On this rig I've got a 3-ounce lead. Now, the reason why I like to use the 3-ounce lead is when I'm putting it in a small PVA bag, it's just the perfect way to cast any distance, and I just find that I get perfect hook holds using this size of lead. If I'm fishing a weedy environment, I'll make sure that I can drop this lead. However, down here at Sandhurst at the moment, we're at quite a cold time of year, there's not that much weed, so I'm fishing it inline. But when the fish picks it up and shakes its head, that lead is going to run down the leader, pass over the line. So if I am unfortunate enough and I get cut off or crack off, that fish isn't going to be trailing the lead around and it's completely safe. As for the rig, I've got around 3 to 4 inches of armour link. Now the reason I'm using my armour link is it's a supple braid, and it's really important that you have a soft hook link in your solid bag, as if you've got a stiff hook link, when you cast out and the PVA bag dissolves, A, you're not going to be able to load the rig correctly into the bag, and your presentation isn't going to be that great. So yeah, I've got 3 to 4 inches of armour link. That's going down to a size 4 twister hook. As for hook bait, on this rig in particular, I've got a couple of bits of yellow corn which have been soaking in the citrus spray. But important thing to consider when you're solid bag fishing is, I feel like when a carp comes and investigates your solid bag, they're not actually going for your hook bait, they're just going for the pellets and the stick mix in your bag. So making sure you have a nice critically balanced hook bait that's going to fly up into the fish's mouth is crucial to make sure that you get good hook holds. On the shank of the hook, I've got a little bit of silicone, and that's just to hold the hair in place, and if I reel in and I haven't had a bite and that's being pushed back, I know that I need to change something on the rig, and I'll act accordingly and what I feel is going to work best on the solid bag presentation. Now that's the rig, and like good old Blue Peter fashion, I've got one here pre-tied. As you can see, I've used the small PVA bag. I personally like to use the small bags, as I just feel like it's a nice neat little parcel of bait. I can cast this short range, long range, and like I said, your rig's going to be presented any bottom that it lands over. And that's the rig. It's very simple, very basic, and it will present over almost any lake bed. Solid bags are a deadly tactic at any time of year, but more so at this time of year. We're starting to move into spring, then fish are starting to wake up from the winter, and it's all about trying to nick that bite. And I feel like having a small parcel of food, something like Scorpex squid pellets or a stick mix, I feel like just having that in an area where the carp are, they're going to come in and have a little bit of investigation. One thing that I'll do just before casting out the solid bags is I'll get some of the plume juice, just put it into the solid bag, fill it up with maximum attraction. When I cast that out and the PVA bag starts breaking down on the bottom, then pellets are going to start spreading across the bottom. That plume juice is going to start dispersing through the water, and if there's any fish in the area, they're going to know that solid bag is present. In each episode, I'm going to be doing a section called Fishery in Focus. In this section, I'm going to be giving you a guided tour around the lake, showing you some of the hot spots, some of the areas I'll target depending on which time of year it is, and an overall insight in the fishery that you're going to be fishing. For this Fishery in Focus, we're currently down at Sandhurst Lake. Sandhurst is a 14-acre day ticket lake with 31 pegs dotted around the lake. There's one island on the lake with a couple of pegs where you can fish from, and out there in the lake, to be honest, it's fairly shallow, average depths of around 5 to 10 feet. Sandhurst is famous for its incredible stock of carp. In here you've got around 400 to 450 carp, and there's a real range in stock, ranging anything from £5 up to around the £46, £47 barrier. There's around 12 40s at the right time of year in here, and there's plenty of backups ranging from £36 to £38. Most of the 18 fish in here have names, but there's a couple that stand out to me. One of them is a 40-pounder known as Nigers, and the other one is an incredible fully scaled mirror known as the Armadillo. Them two fish in here aren't the only two incredible fish. There's plenty of scaly mirrors, plenty of huge commons, and to be honest, when that rod goes, you just don't know what's going to be on the end, and it gets your heart racing. When you drive through the gate down here at Sandhurst and you pull up in the car park, the first thing that you'll see is a net dip. Now it's really important that you follow the fishery rules when you arrive down here. It's a standard procedure. Dip your nets, mats and slings, and this will just stop spreading fishery diseases. Just beyond the dip tank, you met with the lake map. On this lake map, it will show you all the swims and the depth in front of each swim, so when you're setting up, you'll know exactly what's in front of your swim. Just next to the sign, there's also a smaller sign where it shows you your swim boundaries, so when you're wrapping up or you're finding a spot out there, you know the exact boundary where you can fish to, and there's going to be no issues if you casting over anglers' lines. What I'm going to do now is I've got a map of Sandhurst Lake on my phone, and I'm going to give you guys a virtual guided tour around the lake, go swim by swim, so it gives you a better understanding if you're setting up down here for the first time. So as you come through the gate, just past the fishery sign, you're met with the secret swim, peg 2 and peg 3. Now these pegs are just by the car park, and these swims are great if there's a strong southwesterly blowing into this corner, especially peg 1, the secret swim, where you can stalk fish and catch fish in close quarters. Moving clockwise around the lake into pegs 5, 6 and 7. Again, these swims are close range fishing. Don't ignore the margins, as it's a great holding area for the fish. Next up, you've got pegs 9, 10 and 11. Now these pegs give you great access out into the middle of the lake, which can be a great holding area if the lake's busy and the fish are moving out to the middle for a little bit of safety. In front of these pegs, you've got average depths of around 6 feet, but as you move further out into the middle, you've actually got slightly deeper water and there's a silt gully that runs the length of the lake. Moving further down the bank into pegs 12 down to 17, this end of the lake is the deepest part of the lake with average depths of around 10 feet. So this is certainly an area I'd be checking out. If the temperatures are quite cold, it could be a great area for the carp to be holding up for a little bit of warmth. Moving round onto the east bank, pegs 18 to 22, again these areas are quite deep, but these are actually short range swims and you're not going to be able to have access out into the middle. But I wouldn't ignore these swims, they're deep and close and the fish love to patrol this margin. Pegs 26 and 27, these two pegs are a little bit different compared to the rest of the pegs around the lake, and that's because they're not actually on the bank and they're placed on an island. There's a small bridge that goes onto the island. If I was someone who wasn't comfortable with long range fishing, these pegs are an area that I'd certainly consider, because since you're out on an island, you're that little bit closer to the centre of the lake, the fish tend to move into that area for a little bit of safety, and you're going to be able to have access to the fish without having to cast to the moon. As you carry on moving round the lake back towards the car park, you're then met with pegs 30, 31. These two pegs are known as the pipe and the second pipe, and these are very popular swims on the lake. They command a lot of water, you've got plenty of scope, you've got in the margins, out long, and to be honest, this is one of the reasons why I decided to pick the pipe on this session. A couple of other things to mention is dotted around the lake there's a couple of portaloos, and at one end of the lake there's a sheltered area for a barbecue with a few seats, which is perfect if you're going to be having a lake exclusive, which is something that's on offer down here at Sandhurst. For any more information regarding the rules for fishing or lake exclusives down here at Sandhurst, make sure to head over to the website. They've got all the information that you're going to need on there, and hopefully when you guys come down here you'll be able to have a great session. It's got to that time of day again where we're starting to lose the light, and I'm going to top up the spot ready for the evening. Now, I haven't put any bait out since yesterday evening. I think I put 6 or 7 dot spots out on the spot yesterday evening, and I've been able to catch that small one, and unfortunately I have lost a couple. But I feel like there's quite a few fish in the area, especially a few of them small stockies, so I think it's really important now that I top up the spot. Like I said, yesterday I put around 6, 7 dot spots out on the spot, but this evening I'm going to put a few more out there, because like I said, I feel like there's a few fish in the area, and with the conditions that we're going to have tonight, I can just imagine them fish being up for a feed. So I'm going to put around 8 to 10 dot spots. Again, it's just enough to get a bite. It's not filling it in. I don't feel like I'm going to be ruining my chances. I feel like this is going to be the best move to catch the fish. So I'll do this now, redo the rods, and hopefully we'll have a similar result as to last night, but the fish will be a little bit bigger. As soon as I picked up the rod, to be honest, the bite didn't do a lot, it was just a couple of bleeps, but as soon as I picked up the rod, it just slowly started ticking away into the deep water, and it did feel big, but I suppose fishing at the range it's kind of hard to tell how big a fish is. Once it stopped taking line, it just sort of came in, it's kited down right into the peg next door. Luckily there's no one there, but it's just heavy head shakes, and I'm not sure if it's because I've caught a couple of smaller carp recently, but yeah, my money's on saying this is a good one. That's not a bad fish. A little solid bag hanging out its mouth. Oh, come on, get in the net. That is a good one. Yes! That is not a 5-pounder. I'm not sure how big it is, but yeah, it is a pretty big carp, to be honest. Like I say, I'm not sure how big it is, but it's certainly not 5 pounds. That's it, I woke up this morning, I was looking out there and I was like, how's it not happened? I haven't seen any fish show. And the right hand has literally let out a single bleep. And yeah, we've got one in the net to finish this session, and it is what Sandhurst is famous for, a big carp. That'll do. If you're going to end a session with a fish, you might as well do it with a big one. That's exactly what happened this morning with this absolute brute, 38.5 pounds. Yeah, I woke up this morning and it was looking lifeless. I was sort of scratching my head as to why it hadn't happened. Then all of a sudden, the right-hander let out a couple of bleeps and we've been able to catch this absolute unit. One of the biggest and best carp that I've ever caught in the UK. Right at the 11th hour of this session, it has made this trip to Sandhurst worthwhile. Lost for words. One last look at this incredible carp down here at Sandhurst. One of the best carp that I've ever caught, and I'm telling you now, if this doesn't make you want to come to Sandhurst, nothing will. I'm going to quickly run through my 3 top tips for fishing down here at Sandhurst. So my first tip for fishing down here at Sandhurst is that the fish tend to show themselves early morning and late evening. So I'd highly recommend making sure that you set your alarm clock, getting up at first light, getting the kettle on and watching across the lake. If you see a few fish on a different area to where you're fishing, I'd pack down, move around there, as if you're not on the fish, you're simply not going to catch them. In the warmer months, Sandhurst can get really weedy, and I think it's important to make sure that you find a spot where your rigs are going to be presented. Like I said, it gets really weedy, but there are clear spots out there, so when you're setting up, make sure you take your time, do as many casts as it takes to make sure that you find the perfect spot. The last thing that you want to do is lead up, find a spot where you think it's clear, get your rigs out, but then you don't catch anything, you reel in and you've got weed on your rigs. So make sure you spend your time to make sure you find that perfect area to fish. Sandhurst is famous for the large numbers of big carp in the lake. Now, these fish have been fished for several years and they're not daft, so I think it's really important, unlike a busy day ticket such as linear where you're constantly spotting and making the changes, I feel like it's sort of more like set your trap kind of thing, get your rods out, a little bit of bait and just sit there and be patient. Like I said, them carp are wary, they know what anglers are, they know what the sound of lead entering the water is, so set your traps, be patient, sit on your hands and go from there.